I just wanted to talk to this group a little bit and kind of tell you what I'm doing here. You pretty much know about as much about Global Entrepreneurship Week as I do after kind of watching that video. So I kind of want to really hopefully hit home the point of Global Entrepreneurship Week and why we're doing it. I'll tell you a little bit about the Kauffman Foundation. And then I think I'm maybe going to tell you guys a story that I've never really told before, but about my dad. I will see if we get there or not, though. So Global Entrepreneurship Week, in kind of simple words, I think the way that I think about it is still very much in the experimental phase. And what we're experimenting with is this idea that I think you guys have really honed in on here. And that is, I have this experience a lot when I go to university campuses and talk to them about entrepreneurship, the programs that they have or how they think about it or whatever. You can always tell the programs that are really effective because of a simple comment people make, and it is that at some point in this program or in my life or whatever, I started very much looking at all of the problems in the world as a set of opportunities that I can go and solve. And you know, I think one of the things we really work on at the foundation that we really like to kind of hone in on is, what do you got to do to kind of flip that switch in people? And what do you have to do to kind of change people's mindsets to really say, hey, everything that is problematic is also a kind of equally an opportunity that I can go after and really do something entrepreneurial to make an impact with. I think this video we saw earlier was a great example of an entrepreneurial endeavor that came out of a kind of very dire problem statement. So that's very much the point of this week. I think the reason I'm here is because after last year, no one stopped talking about Chapman for like about 6 months afterwards. I think it is a very grassroots initiative, and it's something that I think when we did it last year and it was just in the US, we really had no idea how it was going to go. It could have easily fallen flat, and I think because of places like Chapman, it was a big enough success that we started getting countries from all over the world calling us and saying, we want to do this where we are, how can we help? And we were almost underprepared, and then we said, I don't know, what do you want to do? And so it is so grassroots that we were getting ideas submitted from all over the place that we were then kind of sharing with other people. And I really do think Chapman has been quite at the center of helping be a champion for something that is really going to make a big impact. So that's the kind of story on the Global Entrepreneurship Week. I'll tell you guys a little bit about Kauffman. I'll try to kind of, everyone I know comes here for free food, so I'll keep it kind of short, but it's a kind of cool story. So the Kauffman Foundation was started by this guy. His name was Ewing Marion Kauffman. He started a company called Marion Labs. It was a pharmaceutical company. He was born poor on a farm in Missouri when he decided it was all because of this. He was a high school educated guy. He was kind of clever at math. He'd been in the military. And he started this company, and the day he sold it, I think he created something like 300 multimillionaires just in the Kansas City area where his company was. And when he looked around at all these foundations in the world and looked at the Ford Foundation, the MacArthur Foundation, these big foundations, this was pre-Gates Foundation, so nothing was that big. And he said, you know, all of these things were created by entrepreneurs who really built something amazing, and we don't really know anything about that. We don't know, we know it is this kind of huge force for good. He said, is the miracle in my life that I still don't really understand, and that's what I want my foundation to do. So we are, I think we're a top 30, one of the top 30 biggest private foundations in the world. We've got about a $2 billion endowment, and we make about $100 million a year in grants that are almost exclusively focused on promoting, fostering, catalyzing, kind of spurring entrepreneurship. We do quite a bit on university campuses. I think we're the #1 funder of economic research in the world, and almost all of that is done with a lens of understanding the kind of lever that entrepreneurship is to really grow the economy and create wealth and prosperity and all the kind of great things that come with it. So, so those are two things. Now, I never talked about my dad, and I just started thinking about this a couple days ago, but my dad was kind of a great entrepreneur in some ways. He sold his company when he was about, I think, 42. I think I was a senior in high school when he sold it. And I never really thought of it. It was weird. So I'm a serial entrepreneur. I've started companies and exited companies and had some really great luck, I would say, in my career that kind of allowed me a lot of freedom to do fun stuff. But the first company I started was with my brother when I was 13 and he was 11. And I think the only reason we ever did this is because we grew up in this family where when I was 5, my dad started his company. And I'll stop there for a second and zoom way back. When my dad was 7 years old, he blew his hand off in an accident, like a total freak accident. So he lived on a military base. He used to collect artillery shells. He's really lucky he lived. He was watching Saturday morning cartoons and playing with this, what was basically a grenade, which, why do you play with a grenade? This is a good question, but it wasn't really supposed to go off. It had been checked out by a ballistics expert, and so it was safe, and he collected these. And so he blew his hand off. blew a hole in the roof, blew up the TV, blew his leg almost off, and they saved it. And so he has 2 legs, he has 1 hand. It's basically if you cut your hand off right here. And this is not like a great way to kind of kick things off, I think, when you're in 2nd grade. And he spent, I think, about the next 6 years mostly in and out of hospitals, having surgery so he could walk. And his dad was a surgeon, and they did some weird nerve surgery, and most of it worked out. And he was kind of a mediocre student. He was a military brat. He went to college. I think it took him like 6 years, and he got a bunch of D's all the way through. I mean, he met my mom somewhere in there, which worked out pretty well, I think. And then he ended up getting into respiratory therapy school, I think mostly because his dad knew the dean or something. And he all of a sudden kind of something clicked in his head, and he said, hey, I kind of should get serious about this. And he did pretty well there. Left, went and worked in the hospital, and I think he probably made $50,000 a year as a respiratory therapist in the hospital when I was a little kid. And then one day he kind of said, I'm not satisfied with the way that home care works in the region that we're in, and the way that we take care of patients in their homes, and I see them come into the hospital, and it doesn't seem like someone has really been out there taking care of them. And so he left, and I think his first year he left the hospital to start this company. He made something like $12,000. And my mom was a nurse, and she pretty much supported things. And he grew this company from the time that I was, I think, maybe 5 to the time that I was 18. So in a relatively short amount of time in the grand scheme of things, to basically dominate the home care market in our state and our neighboring state. And this is kind of an amazing thing, right? Like, where in the world can you do this other than in the United States where we live, where you are kind of mediocre, kind of at best for so long, and then at some point there is the switch that is kind of turned on in you, and you can really say, I can, and there's like nothing to stop me from going to create something that is really kind of amazing, I think. And so this is one of these things, like, I live in the world of startups, and I work with a lot of startups, and I never had really thought about this, my dad, in this kind of aspect, because he's your dad, right? Like, you never think about your dad like this. And I was just thinking about it the other day, and I was thinking how amazing that is if when he was, in 5th grade or in 7th grade, someone would have said, you're going to build what is, he sold his company to a pretty big public company and retired quite early, and now he basically plays golf and fishes. But what he had there was it was not an accident. He went out, he took a lot of risk to create this. But I was at the Ernst & Young Entrepreneur of the Year event this week in Palm Springs, which is an amazing event where they bring the top, I don't know how you decide the top entrepreneurs, but they bring a group of amazing entrepreneurs together, and they give them awards, and they celebrate this, and we help sponsor with Ernst & Young. And every person who came up there, I was listening to them tell the story about kind of how they built these companies. And I just kind of started thinking about this. I was like, that is like, you hear these stories everywhere you go, and you guys have these speakers come here and talk to you about it. And I think it's really tough. For the most part, these are not people who were like born, they were not born blessed, they were maybe lucky, but for the most part, they just saw something that needed to be changed, were willing to go and tackle it and build something significant. And I think especially when you're young, I forget it sometimes, and I live in this world of startups, that we have like infinite option value on our lives here, and we can really go build amazing things, and it's just kind of about taking that first step and really jumping in and going to do it. And so that's what I think you probably have a good feel like why I'm at the Kauffman Foundation. But that, being able to kind of help people do that, kind of help find their way. And I think a lot of times taking the first step is the hardest part. But if you do it when you're young, and if you do it aggressively and really commit to it, I don't think success is an accident in this world. And I think that you guys can really choose to go and do great stuff. So that's pretty much all that I wanted to say. I'm really happy to be here, and I think you guys are in kind of a cool place where the environment that fosters this it's not like this everywhere. You feel like the vibe when you go to campuses like this, and there are some campuses that have it and some don't, and I think you just kind of run through the list of things here and see what's going on and know that it's a pretty cool place to be. So anyway, super glad you guys are here.